to at least most of you. And so today we're going to talk about some exciting subjects. Okay, this is going to be a whiteboard presentation, and what I want to do is I want to teach a couple of the fundamental core skill sets and concepts that can make the biggest difference of anything to the income that you make. Now, am I supposed to be looking at this camera over here or this camera? So I'm going to look over at this camera here, and this is going to be exciting. So what I want you to do, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching the replay, is I want you to take notes. Now, you can take notes or not take notes, and that's the reality, because whether I want you to do it and whether you want to do it, that's obviously two different things. The reason I want you to take notes is because if you don't write these things down, you're not going to remember them, right? And you're not going to be able to implement them, and you're not going to be able to take these ideas and build a strategy that you can then go out and apply not only in your business you have right now, but in future businesses that you have in the future. However, if you do write it down and you do take notes, it's a good chance that you're going to remember these at least to a little bit of a higher level, in order that when you go out into the business world and you go out to really do something great, you're going to be able to apply these things just a little bit better at the proper time, because it gets it into your body writing it down. So I encourage you to actually pull out a pen and piece of paper and write it down. Of course, you could pull out a Google document. However, I don't think that typing is quite as good as just writing it with your hand as far as note-taking goes. And you also have a harder time writing circles, whatever, unless you got software, okay? So what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about a selling system that I have, and I'm going to talk about a handful of concepts that are going to help you to build a superior, faster business in network marketing and direct sales, okay? The first thing that I'm going to cover today is actually what I call it's a 5-step selling system that I have, right? So five-step sales system. Now, this sales system has created tons of sales for me, tons, right? And it's actually very simple conceptually, and it takes a little bit more practice to actually be able to do it than it does to just be able to see the formula presented here as I write it out. So again, in order to be able to do this, you're going to have to take notes, and then you're going to have to actually go out there with the next people that you're communicating with and actually apply these strategies. And they do work, and when you apply them correctly, they work almost like you have magical powers, okay? And so this 5-step sales system, this can be used for selling products, right? Now, some products, you actually don't need this to be able to sell, right? And then the next thing, you can use this for recruiting affiliates, right? Now, recruiting affiliates in network marketing, obviously, it goes in a little bit of a loop, because when you recruit affiliates, you recruit people who both sell products and then also recruit other affiliates, right? And this is what creates the exponential expansion effect if you're doing network marketing, right? It is really the majority of your focus that you're going to have in your business is going to be in recruiting and training affiliates to sell products, and also recruit and train affiliates. That's what builds the network, right? So this 5-step sales system, the reason it works so well is because it allows you to target in on the needs, wants, and desires of your target audience in a way that works for them, right? Now, I want you to remember this, because this is like basic people skills 101, but also this is just good marketing mojo, okay? That people don't do things because you want those people to do them. People do things because they want to do them, right? People don't do things for your reasons that you have for them to take action. They do things for their own personal reasons, right? And people want all sorts of different things, and people have all kinds of different reasons, but they usually fall into a few categories, all right? And today I'm going to talk about how to plug into and identify those categories and what the people want, and based on what they want, to put together a process that helps them be able to get that by making the next best decision that is appropriate for them in business, okay? So what's the 5-step selling system? It's very simple, okay? And this is something that I have taught a lot and has made me a lot of money over the years, and it works today just as well as it worked before, but you actually have to do it in order to be able to see the results from it. And you kind of need to even have it written down in front of you, at least the first handful of times you're doing it with people. And even actually after you're good at it, it's not a bad idea, right? In order to be able to do this sequence properly and get the results that I'm going to talk about on this training webinar. So I hope that You are excited to learn these skills and ideas. And with that being said, let me just cover the ideas, the concepts for you. So what are they? Number one concept is to build rapport, right? Rapport, okay? I'm just going to go through them and then we're going to talk about each one. Number two concept is to find out what people want. Number three concept is to find out why they want it. Number four concept is to find out the resources they have to get it. And the number five concept is to point them to the next step. Now, this would be called commonly in sales closing, for example, getting them to ink the contract, whatever you want to call it, right? I just say pointing them to the next step because depending on what phase they're in, the next step might not actually be a sale. The next step might just be watching a video and getting back in the call with you, for example. And then you do the process again, it only maybe go through it faster and then to point them to the next step, which might actually be signing contracts, signing up, buying the product, whatever it is. So again, this 5-step formula, it's very basic and it's actually very easy to do. It's also easy to just do nothing and get no results though. And if you don't do this on anybody, you're not going to get any results. And so it's easy to do and it's also easy not to do. That's the key. The key to actually making this process work is to run this full process on at least a couple of people every single day and see how it works for you. If you don't do this to at least 2 to 5 people every single day, you're not going to really see how well it works because you're never going to actually use the strategy, right? And this is actually an active strategy. In other words, this isn't something that you're just kind of letting go on its own. This is something that you're actually actively doing with the people that are coming into your business who are prospects, who are looking to either buy products or join your opportunity, join you as an affiliate, or join you as some sort of joint venture partner or something like this, right? So again, you build rapport, find out what they want, find out why they want it, find out the resources they have to get it, and you point them to the next step. Now, notice there's something that's actually kind of missing from this process. And that is actually, you might ask, you're saying you're talking about a sales process. You might say, where is the presentation, right? Where is it? It's because this is just a natural flowing into the next step if they haven't seen a presentation. And usually I wouldn't want to be talking to somebody about a business that hasn't already seen a presentation, so it's not necessary. Right? And today, presentations are so much easier to do with third-party tools than they are to personally do. There is no sense most of the time in most things for personally doing presentations, particularly when you're new. Because somebody can watch a video just as easy as you can get on a call and do a presentation with them. And if you do this process is what a presentation is actually good for, which presentations, actually one-on-one presentations in particular, what they're actually good for is you're taking time with someone and the time that you're taking with them builds rapport. Well, if you're building rapport outside of a presentation, doing an actual presentation with somebody is most of the time 100% unnecessary. I've not done personal one-on-one presentations in like 15 years, right? But I've recruited, personally, I've recruited over 5,000 people personally doing something like this, okay? And I've not done personal one-on-one presentations because I make a video, right? And if I make a video, or if I don't have a video, if the company has a video, or if the system has a video, then what I do is I point the person towards the video that the system has. I find this unnecessary, okay? And actually today, a lot of times if I join something, I don't even look at the presentation. I just, find out that it's good. I ask some questions about it. I find out it's something that I can believe in. And then I'll just find a presentation, check out the conversions, and I'll just send it out, right? It's unnecessary, right? And I know you might be thinking, wait, you're saying that's unnecessary. It is unnecessary for most people, not for everyone, right? Some people do need to be doing presentations. But for the sake of this, we're just going to erase this because it is actually not needed for you, which probably should give you maybe a little bit of a sigh of relief that you don't have to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the things that do matter, okay? And to talk about the things that do matter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into first, number one, we're going to talk about rapport, right? Now, rapport is very important to create, right? Very important. It's actually the first thing that you need to create. The reason why rapport is important is because without rapport, nothing else works, right? Okay, let me explain it. If you are like the best at asking questions in the world, but you don't actually have a connection with someone, they never give you real answers to the questions. Never. And I mean never, right? Even if they're a very honest person, they don't really give you real answers. And I mean answers. They don't give you anything meaty. They don't give you anything really connected to them because people are generally reserved with people that they don't know, right? Aren't you? I mean, do you walk into an elevator and just be like, hello, everybody, I just wanted to say hello. I feel like saying hello to everybody in every elevator I go to. You probably sit there quiet in the elevator, and the more people are in, probably the more quiet you are. That's actually how most people are, right? So without rapport, people don't actually talk to you. Right? So if you struggle with gaining rapport with people, you're always going to be in this perpetual state where people around you don't actually tell you what's going on. Okay? And this is a big problem, right? And actually, that's the number one problem that people have when they're selling and recruiting, is because in a sales context, maybe they know how to build rapport with their wife, with their husband, with their children, with their parents, with their best friends, but maybe they don't know how to build rapport very quickly with people that they don't know. So because they don't know how to do it, and because they've never been taught how to do it, they just don't do it at all. So they want to jump right into the tactician level stuff of selling, which is like, I'm going to use the NLP on them, right? The NLP doesn't work if you don't have rapport. NLP is entirely based in rapport. Hypnosis strategies are fantastic, but hypnosis does not work at all if you don't have rapport, if you're a hypnotist, right? They'll teach you that in hypnosis. That the first thing that you got to create if you have clients before you can do any sort of personal work with them or change is you have to create rapport. Now, what rapport is rapport is actually, can be broken out into processes of two things. One of them is matching, and the other one is mirroring, right? So matching and mirroring is rapport. Okay, so matching and mirroring equals rapport, right? That was a little bit of a backwards formula that I wrote, but that's what rapport is, right? So matching and mirroring isn't a technique to gain rapport. Matching and mirroring is what generates rapport. It is rapport, okay? So matching and mirroring is the very fundamental, most basic way to explain it. It is copying what people do. Okay, and this seems overly fundamental, and if you've never heard this before, you might be like, what are you talking about, right? I remember the first time I ever heard about this, I was like, what, right? Matching and mirroring is copying what people do, and copying what people do creates connection. So what is rapport? It's matching and mirroring, and you can also define it as that, you could say it's a magical, mystical state. Right, it's not really either, but magical, mystical state that creates context-dependent responsiveness. I'm just making this up as I do. Responsiveness, right? I'm just making this up as I go. I'm just making this up. Now, I'm just trying to come up with a fancy way of saying you're copying what people do. Okay, so what I mean by copying what people do is that if you're talking to somebody on the phone and they're talking in a very fast pace and you try to talk in a really slow pace, they won't respond well to that actually. Actually, they'll reverse respond a lot of the times, right? So same thing, if somebody's talking in a very slow, very deep way and you're like, hey, how's it going? Let me tell you, right? They don't respond very well. People actually, what they respond to is they respond to people that act like them. And if you question this, all you got to do is you got to watch two people and how they interact together that are very close friends. Okay? When you watch people that are very close friends, and even animals do this, and the reason that people do this that are close friends, and even animals like dogs do this with their owners, I mean, this is not just something that people do, is because the brain has something called mirroring neurons. Mirroring neurons are the parts of the brain that copy what people do. So if you're around somebody that you really like, for example, you'll start breathing in the same way as them. You'll actually start blinking at the same pace as them, okay? You'll actually start making the same facial expressions as them. You'll start using the same words that they do, because this kind of reaction where you're copying what people do comes from something in the brain called mirroring neurons, right? And actually, people that don't copy what people do, they learn to do it through observation. This would be like people, there's mental disorders where people's mirroring neurons don't work. You have psychopathy and things like this. And they still learn how to adopt what people do, but it's a conscious thing because that part of their brain is sort of missing, right? But even they have to do it in order to get along with people, right? When you become aware that people that are very connected to each other always are copying what each other is doing, a fundamental level, I mean, voice tone, word choice, blink rate, breathing rate, right? This becomes very important to then connecting with other people. So what I mean is if you're around people and you're around them in person and you observe somebody's kind of like moving their head from side to side like this, for example, and then they look at you and talk, well, then you just kind of consciously move your head side to side in a similar sort of way, maybe not exactly the same, right? And then you talk, right? If you notice that they always pause, they lower their voice, and then they answer in like a upswing in their voice, then you kind of move in the same sort of rhythm. And the more consciously you essentially copy people's mannerisms, again, the matching and mirroring, I'll explain what that is. It's basically a mirror, right, is if I raise this is actually my right hand over here, and you're on the other side of that, you would raise your left hand, and that would be a mirror. It's like you're copying it in a mirror. Matching is reverse. So if I raise my right hand like this, right, you raise your right hand and it's on the other side. That's actually matching. So there's matching and then there's mirroring. And you could do this with your voice tonality. You could do this with the rhythm at which you speak. You could do this with your facial expressions. You could do this with things like blink rate. You could do this with things like breathing, where if you copy people's tonality, if you copy their word choice, if you listen to their tone and reflect it back to them, right? These are tools of mirroring and matching. These two things produce rapport. You actually don't need to know tons of stuff to produce rapport. You need to learn how to do matching and mirroring, and matching and mirroring alone is sufficient to be able to create the result. And I hope this is actually helpful to the people that are watching this, because this is actually stuff that did make a big difference to me when I originally learned it. But we're going to move on through the formula now, because essentially what you want to do when you start communicating with somebody is you want to mirror and match their energy until you have a connection. And connection, it could be referred to as that magical, mystical state that creates context-dependent responsiveness, right? So in other words, you want to match and mirror people until you observe that they are connected to you. And the way that you observe that, there's a sort of feeling of connection that you can get, and you've probably had that feeling before. For example, if you imagine a time when you were with somebody you were totally in love with, and you were sitting there and you were watching a movie, and you were both laughing at the movie, and then you were kind of looking at each other, and you're laughing at the movie, and you're looking at each other, and you're just kind of like, there's this energy in the room that is just very joyful because of this state of connection that you're in. This is a state of the magical, mystical state that creates responsiveness in that context, which in that context could be, for example, with your children. It could be in the context of a romantic relationship, right? It's like where time sort of gets distorted and you kind of get lost in a conversation. And this is what you're looking to create essentially with people when you're communicating with them, is you're looking to create kind of this state where you both get lost a little bit in the conversation, right? And the way that you do that, again, is by matching and mirroring their word choice, their intonation, their rhythm, right? And things like this, right? Their body movements, if you're seeing them in person. And you don't want to be overbearing, because if you're overbearing with it, like if you copy every single thing that they do, then this can actually break rapport as well, because they're like, hey, you're copying me, and it could be irritating, right? So this is something that is kind of a little bit of an art and a skill, science, right? But this is observed from client-therapist interactions. This is observed in good sales interactions. This is observed in great friendships. This is observed in romantic relationships, in parent-child relationships. People that are very connected with each other copy what each other does constantly, right? And they do it totally unconsciously, which is why if you adapt to it and you do it consciously, people start to respond to you much more quickly than if you don't, okay? So matching and mirroring is actually what creates rapport, right? There's other things we could talk about in that, but we're going to move on. Now, number two thing, again, is what? It's what? It's what it is, right? So that's find out what they want, right? Now, finding out what people want, it's like Stephen Covey says, you want to listen first, right? seek first to understand, then to be understood is actually the way he says it, right? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So finding out what they want comes before everything, right? Except for rapport. Now, the reason why you build rapport is something that's continuous in the sense that once a rapport is established, you have to be very conscious to keep rapport in the relationship, because rapport can be very tricky to establish and very easy to break. Like if you say one wrong, have you ever been in a conversation with someone and everything is going great, you're lost in the conversation, it's being directed in a certain specific way, and then boom, you say something wrong and then it just is lost, right? You're in the doghouse or whatever it is. This happens in relationships all the time, particularly men with women. Women do something, it's like, like we react like a little bit wrong. Like, they ask a question and we answer just a little bit wrong. And then, the rapport just evaporates into thin air in 2 seconds and this cold, dark feeling comes in instead, right? You've been there, right? If you're a man, you've been there, right? And if you're a woman, you've maybe been on the other side of that, right? You'd be like, why doesn't this idiot say the right thing when I ask him that, question and put him into a double bind, right? I like the do I look fat in this question, where like you cannot answer that question and you can't not answer it, and no matter what you say is not the right thing, you have to kind of come up with a response that eludes the question in the specific way that she's looking for, right? So in any case, rapport can be tricky to establish, and it could be evaporated into thin air very rapidly. So this is something that you have to consciously maintain. Like you can't just, for example, I'm going to establish rapport at the beginning of this conversation. Then after I establish the rapport at the beginning of this conversation, then I completely drop my awareness of it because I just assume that they're just going to stay in that connected state. No, people will go into the connected state and they'll drop out of the connected state, and they'll do it like that if you're not conscious of the rapport. Now, I'll teach you a couple of techniques through tonight that will help you maintain rapport, but we're just going to cover a little bit of it because this is actually kind of an advanced subject. But finding out what they want builds from rapport, because people won't tell you what they want if you don't have rapport. So in other words, if you don't have rapport, if you don't have that state of connection with somebody that you're talking to, and you just jump in and you say, well, tell me what it is that you want, they're gonna give you a very surface level answer because you have a very surface level connection with them, right? So if your connection with them is only surface, it's just on the surface level, and that's it, right? And then you ask them a question like, well, tell me, what can I do for you? They're going to give you a very surface, they're going to give you a response that is equal to the level of rapport that you've got. That's why you have to build rapport and be able to find out what they want. Now, specifically, in the context, I'm going to talk about recruiting affiliates, right? What I like to focus on with people like affiliates is how much money they want to make and when they want to make it by, right? This kind of thing. The reason I want to focus in on that is because it's sort of a universal, right? If somebody is taking a look, for example, at an opportunity, and this is true with people like, we got a handful of people on this right now, right? If somebody's, for example, on something like this, they're on a training and they're listening to what I'm saying right now, it is a universal. I don't even have to actually ask because I know in advance. It is a universal that every single person who is on this Zoom webinar right now wants to make more money. This is 100% of the audience. If that was not true, you would not have opened the email, you would not have read it, you would not have clicked on my link, okay? So this is an assumption in the target market that I know because I know the target market. So if somebody is looking at, for example, a home business opportunity, it is a universal that if they are still talking to you after they have looked at it, right, that person does want to make some amount of money that is in addition to what they make right now. It is universal. Or they want something else that is related to money. Like, for example, they want to continue making the amount of money that they're making right now, but they want to work a lot less hours. So because this is, I just squeaky voice, right? So because, right, that's called utilization, by the way. But because, right, they are even looking at it at all, it means that they want to make more money. It's automatic, right? You know that. They either want to make more money or they want to make the same amount of money that they're making right now, but they want maybe more free time. So they're going to want one of a couple of things 400% sure, and both are actually connected to money. Number one, they're going to want to make more money. Number two, they're going to want to make the same amount of money that they make right now, but they're going to want to work less hours. They want control over their life that they don't have. That makes sense? I mean, this is universal. So if you, for example, let's say you're in a network marketing opportunity. You could be in Save Club, you could be in the Amway Corporation, you could be in anything that's out there, right? Or you could just be recruiting affiliates or something like this. If you send somebody to your presentation and they show up for a follow-up call and they don't ghost you along the way, right? So they've looked at the presentation, or maybe you sent an email out and you said, watch this presentation and then email me back. If they email you back, there is a 100% chance that that person wants to make more money. It's not even a question, right? Otherwise, why in the world would they even click on the video and watch that presentation? Why would they even be on an email list in the first place? The answer is they wouldn't be, right? So you find out what they want, and I focus on the specific things. So I say, for example, how much money are you, can I ask you a question? They say, yeah, right? After we've established rapport, how much money are you looking to make monthly on a part-time basis? Very specific. Now you could also say annually. It doesn't really matter. But I like to focus on monthly because it's something that people can think about. Actually, people just have a general hard time generally thinking long-term. This isn't true of anybody. The more somebody reads, the more schooling they've been through and things like this, people gain through years of study, for example, a much greater capacity to think long-term. Particularly ADD people, they can't think about anything long-term. All they think about is like what's in the refrigerator in the next 5 minutes and how much money they have in their bank account this instant and whether they can afford it, right? And that's because of their brain works a little bit differently. It's nothing wrong with them, I don't think, right? But most people, right, they don't really think too far out. You can see it by how they run their life. They run their life on a week-to-week and a month-to-month basis. Because they run their life on a week-to-week and a month-to-month basis, that's about how far they think out. If you want to know how far someone thinks out, look at how far out they'll plan a vacation. The maximum time period that somebody will plan a vacation out is really about a year, right? People that think beyond 1 year in the future are like magical unicorns. It's almost nobody in society, right? Most people who are in the world think on a day-by-day, week-to-week, maximum they think about a month out. So if you ask them about how much money they want to make, it's helpful to put a time stamp on it because that's how long they think, right? They think about their monthly income and their monthly bills. Everybody has to pay their phone every month. They have to pay their house every month. They might have to pay child support every month. So they think about, what do I need right now this month? So my question for you is, how much money do you want to make from this on a monthly basis? Right? That makes sense? So that's what, right? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to transition from what to why, but when you ask how much money do you want to make part-time on a monthly basis, I'm very specific. How much money do you want to make from this part-time on a monthly basis? Right? And they're going to give me an answer. If they say something that is not specific, I'm going to drill down to very specific. So if they say, for example, well, I would like to make between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, is that specific or is that ambiguous? It's ambiguous, right? It's within a range, so it's not totally ambiguous, but anything within that range hits their qualifications. For me, that is not specific enough. They didn't actually answer the question. So if I ask a question to somebody and they don't answer, guess what I do? I get more specific until they actually answer the question, right? So if somebody says, I'd like to make between $5,000 and $10,000 per month, I would then say, so you want to make between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, right? Repeat it back. That helps maintain rapport. They see that I listen to them. Then I'm going to say, well, how much exactly do you want to make? Because $5,000 and $10,000 is a big range. I mean, $10,000, it's 200% of the first number that you gave. Is there a specific number that you really want to make that's in your mind? And usually they're going to give me a specific number if I ask that. They're going to be like, you know, as a matter of fact, it is, I want to make $8,700 a month. Right? People will say things like that if you ask. But if you don't have rapport and you don't ask, they're never going to do that. And if you just hear that and then you jump on to the next step and you don't really drill in, you actually begin losing rapport because you're losing authority because you're just accepting whatever it is they say. And people with authority don't just accept what everybody says. They get specific, right? It's like a doctor, right? If you go to a doctor and it's like, he's like, well, where does it hurt? Well, it hurts in my chest. Does he end it there? No. He asks, where does it hurt in your chest? Right? Well, it hurts here. Okay. Does it hurt in a pattern that radiates from there? Or is the pain isolated to that spot? Right? Is it hot or is it cold? Right? He might have like, I'm not a doctor, right? He might have like 10 questions that he asks just around that specific kind of pain. So when you're asking what people want and they give you a general answer, you're the doctor, you get specific. Well, exactly how much do you want? I want to make $8,700. So you want to make $8,700 per month? Is that what you're saying? Yes. Now they've answered the question. Right, so I get into specific. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump and segue right into why. Now, this is a process, but it is also an art. Because what's going to really happen in a good conversation, particularly if you have rapport, is the conversation is going to naturally veer on and off course as you're going through. And you've got to kind of bring them gently back onto course when they're veering off the course because you're the one that knows where this should go and they don't, right? You're asking questions both as a science and an art form. So they veer off in that direction and then you repeat back what they say and you kind of gently bring it back to the conversation. But one of the things that is going to cause it to veer off, but you got to rein in, is when you start asking about, once again, the why. And really, I'm just writing over here again what I wrote over here in case you can't notice. And this is to help you perhaps take notes and write the same thing. So why is like, so you want to make $8,700 per month. And they say yes. Then I would say, well, tell me, why do you want to make $8,700 per month? Right? And I'm going to look for an answer. Now, this one is actually far more tricky than this one. Right? And the reason why the why is a little bit more tricky than the what is because it's a deeper level of communication to touch on. Right? And it takes some skill in rapport and some authority and some persistence many times to get to it. A lot of times you're not going to get to it on an immediate basis. In other words, you'll say, well, tell me, well, why do you want to make $8,700 per month? And they'll say something along the lines of like, well, that's just what I want. Or they're going to say, well, you know what, I would feel pretty good about that. In other words, they're not really telling you anything of significance. And the untrained person, when they hear something of little to no significance, check it off as if they hit the step when they're not even anywhere near close to hitting the real why, right? Now, I first heard about this. There's a book I read a long time ago. The very first time I read about this, it was this guy named Jack something. He's a Facebook friend of mine. And he wrote a book. It's like the DNA of Success, I think is what it's called. I read this book in like maybe 2005. And I read it and I was like, whoa, this is a pretty incredible book, right? But he's a network marketer. But he talked about this concept of when you're prospecting people, when you're communicating with the people that are getting in your business and buying products or they're joining the opportunity, you want to really drill in to the why, right? And he talked about how to get there, right? So what he said is what you want to do is when somebody gives you an answer to, well, tell me why you want that, basically whatever they say to you, what you want to ask them in return is repeat it back to them and say, so when you feel good because you're making $8,700 a month, what will that get you that you don't have now? And ask that. And what happens is that you get to another, they'll think about it for a moment, and then they'll say, well, actually I'm going to feel good because if I have $8,700 a month, I'm going to be able to pay my bills on time. So you say, so you're going to be able to pay your bills on time. So when you can pay your bills on time every month, every time, what is that going to do for you that you don't have now? And he would have you repeat that at least 2 times, but really what you're looking to do is you're looking to really drill in on what they really want and why they want it until you hit a sort of wall of silence. And then the person has to think about it for a moment. And then they answer. And when you really hear a why, there's a specific phenomenon in the voice that a trained person will observe, and they know they can check the step off and move on. And this is key, because if you don't have this, you have no leverage. And if you have no leverage, you can't get somebody to take action. And if you can't get somebody to take action, you're either not going to have a recruit, or you're not going to have a recruit that builds. Right? Because there's a difference between just getting a recruit who buys something and forgets that they bought it tomorrow, and getting a recruit that actually builds something because they really want something and they believe that they can have it. And the difference is the why. And they used to say, I remember Dexter Yeager used to repeat this, that if your why doesn't make you cry, it ain't strong enough. And he passed away, I think, like 1 or 2 years ago, but I think the saying is good, right? If your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. I don't know about that. I don't know if you need to cry, oh, well, I really want to pay my bills, right? I don't know about that. But the reality is that the why is connected to a deeper core emotion, and the why on a deeper level is connected to a higher need, such as, for example, safety, right? Safety and security, you could say. It's connected to something like significance. It's connected to something like cause, right? Like a cause would be like keeping my family safe and secure. Cause would be like a higher level than just, a need of your own. It could be like connected to a cause. For example, like I want to be able to really give money away to this community project that I believe in locally that helps homeless people in my local community. And if I could give them $1,000 a month, I would feel so good about what I'm doing in the world. Does it make sense? So the why is something that's deeply connected to what you would call a core need or desire. A core need or desire. A core need or desire is apparent because when you touch on it, people begin to respond as if your business, as if your solutions are the core need or desire. And that's why it's so important to tap into, because you're tapping into a root level of human motivation. The core need and desire of that person that's going to drive them forward when you're not around for the next 2 years, right? So if all there is money, money is actually very surface level for most people. It's like, yeah, practical. Yeah, I would like the $5,000 per month, please, right? But it's not going to motivate somebody as if their life depended on it most of the time. It's just like, yeah, I'd like that. How could I get that? And they're practical about it, right? Generally, that's what people think, or they have a weird idea about money. But when you get into the core desire of people, that core desire, when you understand what it is, it's like anytime you want that person to take action, you just pull the lever of their core desire, and it almost makes them mad, that they want to do whatever it is so badly. So an example of a core desire could be like, well, what I really want is I want my daughter to be able to have the opportunities that I never had in my own life, right? And they'll deepen their voice when they say it, right? So this is why, right? So when you get to the why, the next logical step is to find out, well, okay, we figured out why you want this because you want to help I want to repeat back what you said to make sure that I understand. So you want to make $8,700 a month so you can help your daughter have the opportunities that you never had by investing in her education. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the resources that you have to be able to accomplish this goal. So we're going to talk in a couple of different areas. We're going to talk about the time resources that you have available, and we're going to talk about the money resources you have available. And there's no particular order you need to do this in, so just pick one. Actually, I think money is good to talk about first to get it out of the way, right? Because people avoid talking about money, and it actually just makes them look weak. You just talk about money with people, okay? Like right off, you just be like, look, how much money do you have available right now to spend on starting your business, tools and services, and things like leads and marketing? And I want to know how much you have right now, and I want to know how much you have on a monthly basis that you can invest towards making that goal of $8,700 per month. Now, people will give you wildly different answers here. They'll give you anything from I have $50 right now and $20 a month to I have $1 million right now and $200,000 a month. People will give you just this wildly crazy range of answers if you just are listening to people, right? Don't expect anything here. What you want to do is you want to take your, stop projecting your own level of money on other people. Because people have wildly different levels of money in society, right? It's just wildly different. The problem a lot of people have with selling in general and getting people to take action, this is the reason people, for example, have a hard time selling high-ticket stuff. Because in selling high-ticket stuff, I'm not right now actually selling anything that's particularly high-ticket, but I have sold high-ticket stuff very successfully at times, and I've had other times where it's not been done as well. And it's been the same issues that have caused both things, right? If you project your own personal situation or your past story onto other people, you're going to create all kinds of objections because you're doing that. Just stop it. You say, well, how do I stop? Realize people are different and just look for what their answer is, not anything that you pre-formulate in advance. So just ask them, how much money do you have to invest in your business right now? And then we're going to talk about on a monthly ongoing basis. And this is for joining a business, buying your products, services, and tools, investing in your marketing. Things like leads, autoresponders, things that are going to make you money. And they're going to say a number. And just listen to what that number is, right? After you get the number, check if it's honest, right? So they say they have $500, right? So right now, what you actually have, let's say you know for sure you're going to be able to make $8,700 per month within the next 90 days. I'm not promising that. Let's say you know for sure. How much money is that? Is $500 the maximum amount that you can put towards building your business right now? Right? Well, no, actually, if I was really confident in it, I could put in $1,500 actually. Okay, so what you have available right now to invest in a business that can hit these goals is $1,500 then. Yeah. Okay, so you've got $1,500, and again, people will tell you, I have $50,000 I can put in, right? And another person will tell you, yeah, I've got $275 I can put in right now, right? So people give you this huge range of different answers because people are in very different financial situations. The person with $50,000, they might want to make $2 million. The person with $275, they might want to make $5 million, right? You never know. People are going to give you wildly different answers of income goals, but they usually fit within a range. Like most people, for example, when you're talking about what they want, they're going to say it's like $1,000 to $5,000 a month is a big answer, right? It's like $1,000 to $3,000 a month is a pretty big range. Another big range is $5,000 to $10,000 per month. The next biggest is like $30,000 a month and above, right? So people just jump all over the place with these answers. Yeah, I want to make $875,000 a month, right? Like people say all sorts of stuff. But what you want to do is you want to drill in and find out, is that answer authentic? Because you never want to push somebody away because you think their answer is ridiculous. Because you never know if that person is going to actually go and do that. There are people in network marketing, most of which were discounted in the beginning by the people that brought them in, who do make more than $800,000 a month. Not a lot of them, but there are out there, and there's a decent amount of them. So you never know what someone's actually going to do, so you don't want to judge the answer that comes out of their mouth either. Just let them tell you what they want and believe in them, right? Believe in their ability to do it. Because you don't believe that it's possible to make that much money, doesn't mean you should be projecting that on other people. And because you were broke when you got in doesn't mean you should be projecting that on other people, because people have radically different financial resources, right? So the next part of the what is finding out. So this is going to go in a few areas, right? So we talked about money. The next one is finding out time. I'm just going to draw a little symbol here of time. It's a clock, in case you can't tell, right? So money and time are the two main ones, right? Money, time are the resources, right? Oops, I put what again? That was supposed to be resources, excuse me. Right, so this is the resources, right? So how much money do you have available to invest in your business right now and on a monthly basis? And then how many hours per week do you have available that you are willing to dedicate towards building your business part-time until you reach that goal? How many hours per week do you have right now that you can dedicate towards the activities that I'm going to give you to reach that goal? That's another way of asking it, right? The idea is asking them, you could say this in 50 different ways. The idea, the principle is isolating how many hours they actually have right now to dedicate towards hitting their goal at the moment. And being very specific, just like you were with the money, right? So if they say, well, I have about 10 hours per week, you say, do you have about 10 or is it a different number? Tell me what hours during the week you actually are going to invest in your business. Well, okay, I could do Monday from 5 to 8 p.m. Okay, that's 3 hours. What's the next day you could do? Well, I could do Thursday from 5 to 10 p.m. Okay, that's a total of 8 hours, right? What else can you do in the week? Well, I could do from Saturday from 8 to 12 a.m. Okay, so you could do you're willing to give me 14 hours a week that you're going to exercise focused activity to build this income of $4,700 per month so that you can give your daughter the opportunities that you never had. So if I give you exactly what to do, you're willing to invest all those hours towards an exact game plan? And they're going to say, usually, yes. Right? That's the idea. Yes, 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 yes. Right? Now, before you think that this process is taking an hour, you can get through this entire thing with the right kind of prospect under 10 minutes. Okay? It just takes a lot of explanation in order to be able to drill into your mind why you're doing this. With a prospect that maybe is taking you around on curves and loops a little bit more, it might take you up to 30 minutes in order to get to through this process, right? Now, once you've collected all this information, you are now ready to point them towards the next step. And again, the next step is just what's next in your funnel, right? That's it. You don't have to like pick a million different ways. It's just what haven't they done yet, right? And have they not watched the presentation video yet? Well, then you want to send them to the presentation video with a firm commitment to go on to another call, right? Have they watched the presentation video? Well, if they've watched the presentation video, the next step is to join at one of the packages. Which package should they join at? They should join at the package that fits the budget that they gave you. Don't try to force one person to be another kind of person. Just point them at the next step and then give them another assignment. That's it. So the next one is the next step. Now, there's a question that I like to ask, and I'm going to give you, there's an advanced way that I like to ask the question, but I'm not going to give you that today because I have that in a course. And it's also just, I don't want to be on here for another 30 minutes and explaining that question and giving you 500 examples of it, right? So the basic next question step, it's very simple. It's a 1 to 10 question, right? It's, well, first of all, it's what do you like best, right? And then 1 to 10 question, and then sounds like you're ready to get started. These three things. Sounds like you're ready. That's like with an E. It's hard to write like down like this. Ready to get started, right? So it sounds like you're ready. So what do you like best about it? 1 to 10. Sounds like you're ready to get started. This is it, right? And then there's one more statement. I'm going to write it over here because it's easier. So just go like arrow, right? Here's what we're going to do next. Now, these questions have worked with the same results since I have learned them. These have never stopped working at that particular part of the conversation. But without the rest of the conversation, it's unpredictable how this stuff works. So you find out what resources. So let me tell you how you'd ask this question. So I just want to make sure that I got everything that you told me correct. You've got, you want to make $8,700 a month so you can give your daughter the lifestyle that you never had, the opportunities you never had, and that specifically means paying for her to go to an excellent university like we've talked about. And you have got 14 hours per week to invest into building your business, and you've got $1,500 right now and $500 per month you can invest into product, system, tools in order to start building your business. Do I have everything correct? And they're going to say yes. So then you say, well, tell me out of everything that you've seen and that we've talked about, what do you like best about what you saw? They might say, well, I really like the opportunity to make a part-time income that can give my daughter the opportunity. Okay, great. That's what I like about it too. I like helping you get what you want. And if that's what you want, I'm here to help you get that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not interested and 10 being I'm ready to get started right now, where do you fit? Simple version of the question. And they're going to give you an answer, right? And then usually, if you've done the rest of the process, that answer is going to be between 7 and 10. Usually, right? If the answer is below 7, you ask them, what would we have to do from here in order to get you to a 7? And then you'd resolve that issue. But most of the time, it'll be between a 7 and a 10. If it's between a 7 and a 10, you just need to ask them to get started. That's it. You don't need to overcome objections. There's nothing more to discuss. You just get them started. Because if somebody is over a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, it means they're ready to get started. And what's going to get them to a 10 is just getting started, right? If they're not a 10. You don't need to bother getting somebody from a 7 to a 10 if they say they're a 7. They're ready to get started, right? So if they say, well, I'm like a 7.5. You're like a 7.5. Cool. So it sounds like you're ready to get started, right? Sounds like you're ready to get started. You're nodding the head. It sounds like you're ready to get started. Even if you're on the call, it sounds like you're ready to get started. You actually nod the head. And they're going to say if they're over a 7.5, if they're over a 7, they meet the qualifications, they're going to say yes. So great. Here's what we're going to do next, right? So first thing that we need to do is we need to actually get you enrolled. So are you in front of a computer right now? We're going to say, yeah. Great. You have a link. I just sent it to you. I want you to click the link and tell me when it's open. Okay. Go ahead and fill out that page and hit the submit button and tell me when you're in the back office. All right, you're in the back office. Go ahead and click that big orange button that says lock in your spot. Tell me when you've clicked it. They click the button. Okay, now on this page, you can choose a monthly or an annual option, right? And most people, they choose the annual option because they don't have to think about it for a year. But would you prefer the monthly or the annual option? Well, I prefer the annual. Okay, great. Do you prefer to pay with credit card or with crypto? Right? Crypto. Okay, go ahead and select crypto, and I want you to fill in this order form, and let's go ahead and get you locked in right now. And by the way, why don't I give you 60 seconds to do that? We're going to stay on the phone here, and I'm going to go grab a glass of water because we've been talking for 20 minutes. I'll be right back to help you actually get started. That fair? Yeah. There's just no resistance whatsoever. If you actually do this process right, now this could be with any opportunity, right? Now there's a prerequisite to getting there. One of the prerequisites is, like, for example, if you want to have a one-call close, it means before the call they need to have seen a presentation, right? That could be done. That's pretty simple. So you could, for example, get somebody to watch a presentation by sending them a text message, by sending an email out to your list, by sending an email out to cold list. You could also be doing this, for example, if you're in Save Club, for example, you get free registrations. If you call your free registrations, every single person that you do this 5-step process with who has gone through free registration, there won't be 1 in 20 that won't buy. If you actually talk to them and you just run them through this 5-step process, 90% of them, 95% of them, they're going to buy because they already put their information into the website. So the prerequisite characteristic is done. So all you've got to do is call them up. And some of you maybe wonder, like, why won't these free registrations turn into sales? Well, they do actually. Probably like 1 in 5 will anyway. But if you actually talk to them, it's like 9 in 10. And it's very easy to do this, right, with opt-in leads like that. So that's it. That's the main training for tonight, right? Is this giving you guys value? I hope actually that this is giving you some sort of value, because like this is something that, like, if you actually do this, this is something that you can go out and you could literally recruit 2, 3, 4, 5 people per day, like every single day, doing what I just told you to do. So tell me if you thought this was valuable in the comments. And that kind of gives me, some sort of feedback that I'm on the right track with what you like to learn. And if you want to learn something else, then I'll teach something else. But let me know. And also, I'm here if you have any specific questions, particularly about the subject matter that we have tonight. And if there's no questions and no feedback, because you're like, I am nervous to answer a question, it's fine. Yeah. So, okay. So Mike Gills, you thought it was good, right? So, great value. I got to remember there's a delay on this as well. You like it, right? So the question is, are you going to do it, right? I've taught this to a lot of people, and very few people have ever really taken it to heart and done it on, for example, 200 connections with people, right? Because here's the thing with what the strategy is that I just gave you, okay? The strategy that I just gave you, if you do this with, for example, 100 people in the next month, you can't do this with 100 people without bringing 20 people into literally anything. It doesn't even matter what it is that you'll do it, right? So it doesn't even matter what it is that you're doing. Like, if you do this 100 times in a month, you're going to bring in 20 people to literally anything that you do. It could be Amway, Herbalife. The company could be going through an FTC lawsuit and in the middle of a very public lawsuit. It could be Save Club. It could be prepaid legal. Literally, no matter what it is that you're promoting, it could be a marketing system, okay? No matter what it is that you're promoting, you're going to bring in a predictable amount of people. Now, if you're doing this process to people that have already seen a presentation, so you have, for example, a capture page and a presentation right afterwards, and then you're only calling people back that have seen a presentation, if you do it in that order to 100 people, you're going to recruit more like 50 to 80 people, okay? The only difference is because they've seen it already, it's much easier to do the close because you don't have to do a 2-step process where you send them back to a presentation most of the time because they've already taken a look at it. So the key is, on your closing ratio, 1 out of 5 or 3 or 4 out of 5, what's the difference? It's the order and the sequence that they came in. So if somebody comes in and they take a look at what it is that you're doing, okay, and then you build this connection, right, then you're going to get 3, 4 out of 5 doing this process. I'm going to tell you about time, a really cool story. I haven't told any stories tonight, so this would be good. I remember I just started really prospering on the internet. This is back in 2009. So 2010, I was the #1 recruiter in like 4 different things. And one of these things, it was, I'm trying to remember where it was. So 2010, I would have been in the Numis network with Jake Kevorkian and Chris Kent. Some of y'all know those guys. Maybe you don't. If you don't know them, they've gone on done different things since then. But they were fantastic people to work with, fantastic. Anyways, I was in the Numis network, and I had 4 appointments per day, and they were all between the hours of 12 to 2. Because I'm just this kind of person. I don't like to talk to anybody in the morning. I have these very long and elaborate morning rituals usually. So I either will work in the morning, but it's like head work, organization stuff like marketing emails, making video scripts and things like this. Like this morning, I was making a course that I've got for another project. So I'll either do something like that, or I literally will wake up at 6 o'clock and I'll read till noon. Right? Like that's actually my preferred morning routine is just I wake up at 6 and I will read till noon, right? Like I will read that long. I'm actually reading, those of you who don't know me very well, this is the 2nd book in the Encyclopedia Britannica and I'm almost all the way through, right? There's 29 of these, so this will take me like 2.5 years. But this is like 6 hours a day for 2, you call me a dork, whatever you want, it's fine. But in any case, right, like I did extensive reading. I have these very long, elaborate rituals, yoga, right, whatever. So I never will do a call before noon. Never, right? I just never will do it, right? And so I had 4 calls per day in 15-minute chunks with a 15-minute break from noon till 2 p.m., right? And what would happen is that I would get on these calls and literally have a 100% show up rate. And I would close 4 out of 4, 5 days a week. Literally, I went 3 months straight recruiting 4 people per day, 100% ratio. Then finally, on the 3rd month, there was somebody and their credit card didn't go through. And that was the only reason they didn't join right then and they got in later, right? So literally, 100% closing ratio for 4 months straight. No, 3 months, excuse me. And then finally somebody's credit card didn't go through. Now, how did I do that? How was I able to get a 100% closing ratio for 3 months straight? I followed this formula. Now, why was it 100%? It was 100% because the people had already seen a presentation. So they already had seen the presentation and said, I want to talk to this person. Okay? That was the only prerequisite. The people that they had already seen a presentation and they still wanted to talk to me. If I had to, for example, talk to people and send them to the presentation, my close rate would have probably been 20%. And I would have had to go through a lot more no-shows in order to get to that. But because they had already seen the presentation and their appointment had been booked, the close rate was literally 100%. 100%. It wasn't 80%. It was 4 out of 4 for 3 months. Okay? This works, right? You're like, that's a crazy amount of recruiting. Yeah, it was like, so 5 days a week, it was 20 days a month, times, it was like I'm recruiting 100 people a month, and it was like a $500 buy into that company, right? So this skill can make you a lot of money if you do it, but you've got to commit to really drilling into this process and not progressing until you've got answers. Don't let yourself get nervous and then just think that you got the answer and go to the next step. Really get into it and make sure that you hit the step before you progress, and make sure that you're actually checking off each phase. Like, I've got rapport, I've got what they want, I got why they want, I got their resources. Okay, now it's time to ask for the sale. Boom. And today in 2025, guess what people want more than anything? With all the AI and the fake phone calls, and I love the AI and the fake, I love the stuff, right? So, but guess what they want? They want a human connection. That's why it still works, right? So these are like evergreen skills. I hope you enjoyed the value tonight, and I hope you'll be back next week, and feel free to bring some people. And if you're not in yet, you can get back with whoever invited you to this team training and just say, hey, give me a link. I'd like to join the team. And we welcome you aboard. So that being said, we will, Mike, after you do it a few times, you won't have any fears because everybody just joins. All right, folks, we're good. We'll see y'all next week. I appreciate you. And as I like to say, we'll see you on the beaches of the world. So let's lock arms and fight the forces of evil. Bye-bye.